Deb Dunstone, CEO of the Learner First in Brisbane. And with me today, I've got Stephen Bell, our Director of the Leadership Programs from the Learner First. And an absolute privilege today to have Ben Weeks, Principal from Robina State High School on the Gold Coast in Australia, and Kelly Nichols from Cheney District in Washington State in the United States. And we're going to have a conversation today about holistic development. And it's probably one of my favourite topics because it's really about the heart of school improvement and the importance of a strategy that actually pulls everyone from well-being, academic, social, emotional. And in my experience as a school leader, I often saw schools, and probably myself, as called a program for this and a program for that and a program for this. And as the principal or the leader, it's the responsibility to kind of pull all of that together. And I'm interested to start the conversation, Kelly, with you, as you think of holistic development.
When we think about holistic development, it's removing the intellectualism or programmatic nature of what it means to educate children. And remember that we're here to educate children, and children are people, and we are people. And to learn and to be in community is actually a human-centered design. I think in America, much of our misalignment and frustration with education is that we have tried to operationalize it as a consumerism and really created unnatural conditions for children to learn in. It's how do we unlearn what we have known to be true about education, in the sense of it's something that's done to children, that it's something that's based on just content, that there's not this human spirit, brilliant mind forming person in front of you. And how can you intrigue and inspire a young person to want to know more about something that matters?
A lot of synergies there, Kelly, with sort of, I guess, my belief system as a leader and the direction our school's going in. I guess for me, I sort of think of two questions when I think about this work. Firstly, what do we as educators want for our young people? And then I think, more importantly, what is it that our young people actually want for themselves as they're moving into the next chapter of their lives? And whilst doing that, make sure that our young people in our schools get back a bit of the joy of learning and get back a bit of that, I guess, purpose behind learning, and actually feel fulfilled and can see links to their learning internally, and then really start to think around, well, what does this mean for my future, both individually and collectively? And how can I use the knowledge, but more importantly, how can I use those transferable skills to make a real difference?
Student is the curriculum. Like, they are everything that we're about, and the community of a classroom is everything that we do. And like, it's not, I teach math, I teach children.
Certainly in Australia, I think, around the world, indeed, we've had so many challenges and so many changes to the way that, society operates as a whole. And I think schools are a real sort of microclimate of society and reflect all of the challenges happening outside. And I think our kids are at a real, I guess, knife's edge at the moment in terms of engagement and disengagement. And as you mentioned, Kelly, if we don't start to flip our thinking around knowledge not coming first, it's the person that comes first. As I say, we're at a real tipping point.
That I like about contributive learning is it's not a global step 1, 2, 3. It's contextually responsive, and that you make the decisions in your own context and you drive the change process from the centre with the people in your organisation.
You both got really large leadership teams and influence across leaders. How do we, and this is Stephen's work and magic too, but the tools that we use to get leaders thinking about their job, because they're often the keeper of the keys, or they're the keeper of old custom, tradition and practice. This is the Robina way, this is the Cheney way, been doing this for, how do we play in that space?
In leadership, teacher agency is just as important as student agency. So, it's really important as leaders that we have a really clear line of sight into what our teachers' current reality is. Be really mindful of cognitive overload of teachers, be really mindful of workload, be really mindful of the environment they're operating in. And I guess it's then around helping teachers and helping us collectively to identify, why is it we do the work we do, and what is our current reality, and is what we're doing actually working. Then when we get to the realization that, yep, we've got some really great stuff happening, but we've got some stuff that is somewhat counterproductive to student belonging, student engagement, student motivation, how can we make changes? And it's around involving staff in that process to be able to lead their own learning.
Things that you touched on was that you need to build a momentum for the change. You need to get teachers on board. You need to get teachers on side. Do you have any deliberate processes or strategies to make that happen?
We, in our districts particularly, we have really focused some learning on continual improvement methodology. Looking at the evidence, really understanding the problem we're trying to solve, and those closest to the work, right? So it's exactly executing teacher agency. And I think, what's imperative is how our adults learn and engage is what you want that to model, the quality and meaningfulness that we want for our young people, right? Because we are all in community of the way that we learn. So for us, it's been what really matters, right? That's the essential question. What matters? How do we know that it matters, and matters to whom, right? What has surfaced for us is, well, we know what matters, we as in teachers and parents even, but these other people want this. And it's like, well, why? And are they mutually exclusive? And so we really dig into that cycle of really understanding what is the actual problem, what is in our locus of control, which many times when we're able to dig into that, they realize there's much more locus of control than we assume there is. And then how do we really, particularly as a district community, with parents, with students and their voices and what they want, their agency, and with teachers, we all really want the same thing. And if that's what matters to us, then that's what we're going to prioritize and focus on. I think for me, the leadership imperative is, how are you that buffer that ensures that your community, your learning community, is focusing on what matters? And the things that aren't necessarily mattering to your community at this time, but are important for the survival of your organization, are tended to deal with all that. We as in the leadership team, you focus on what's right for your learning community. You focus on your classroom. You focus on these outcomes that matter. And we'll make sure everything else aligns.
The tools I use are, student agency, more importantly, teacher agency, and then making sure our systems and processes provide time and opportunity for us to deeply engage with each other moving forward. So, for example, some of the rubrics we've engaged with, where we're tracking where our school's at in terms of our learning culture. So there's the big culture piece, and I guess the why work around why we've got to change, providing time for learning and reflection. Then it's also really important to back it up with school systems and processes. So one of the things that we do here at the start of every term is we don't start curriculum work straight away. We have an initiative here that we call Connect Before Content.
We've certainly got schools that, are saying, well, I used to spend all my time as a school leader, as a deputy principal, in the behaviour space, and now I'm getting to spend it in the pedagogy space. How cool is that? Because naturally those things change. And I guess for me, that's the holistic nature of when we stop doing all of the little programs or shiny buttons and pull them together as a strategy.
Deb, too, to build on that, one of the first steps is recognizing that if you're spending the majority of your time in behavior, that's still a pedagogical issue. Right. And so it's, what we're working with is the misalignment of the pedagogy. And so I think that's been something too, as a mindset change, is how do we recognize that everything that's happening is teaching and learning? And when you are in wrong alignment and you're fixing the wrong problem or using something that actually doesn't meet the real need, you're going to constantly find yourself in a place of dysfunction. When young people and our teachers are in symmetry, when they are in harmony, when they see each other as their authentic selves, when they're able to really teach who they are and learn who they are in ways that matter, those things fall away because those things were never necessary to begin with, right? And you've tried to fix the problem with something else without actually fixing the real issue, which is that way of really being in community and having an understanding and shared purpose. I think that's the big like actual catalyst to really do the transformational change, because otherwise people will treat this as another program.
And that's a really hard, I mean, I'm constantly saying, Ben, I remember when I was first in his school, it's not a program. And that's really hard because we've been used to buying or thinking about educational reform as what's the latest package we'll buy. And it's actually more the art of holistic facilitation of executive leadership that leads to self-understanding of you as a leader, and then how you lead your team to do the strategic plan, to deliver on culture, curriculum, self-understanding, graduate profiles, capabilities. You know, it's that holistic leadership. And I think for me, what's really refreshing in the tools is that makes those conversations really easy with teams and not personal. And so the art of having it facilitated means that the leader is in the room learning. And Stephen's got some really nice work around how you then empower middle leaders to lead that strategy different and assess it and measure it differently.
Middle leaders, in that they're the keepers of the culture in a lot of ways, aren't they? Because they sit next to someone in the staff room. They're the ones that are having the one-on-one conversations. They're the ones that are leading their faculty teams or their year level teams. So, you know, you as an executive leader obviously have an important responsibility in setting the direction, but it's those conversations that happen in the staff room and in the classrooms, and are the ones that really do change people's opinions and how they do their
For
work.
me, the way we rolled out the work, making sure that it wasn't actually led by myself and my deputy principals was really core. For this work to work for us, it was about our middle leaders and our teachers taking control of the work. And certainly at times throughout the first 18 months, there were times when the team sort of looked at me and sort of said, Ben, we just need a bit of direction and a bit of reassurance from you. So I was able to step in at those times and speak about the long-term plan and talk around timelines and how does it link to the department's agenda, how does it link to our school's improvement agenda, bring them back on track. And then they were right to keep moving. I think this is the first agenda I've ever implemented as a leader where we didn't have the end product first. And that was challenging for teachers too, because they're sitting there going, Ben, just tell us what it is we're doing, and we'll do it for the next 6 months, and then we'll jump on to the next project that you're going to pull out of wherever. I think that first sort of 6 to 8 months, it took them to get that realization. Hang on a minute, we're actually building this for us. We're making it fit our context and our kids and our strengths and our community. I think once we broke through that first 8 months and the mindset that, hang on, we're actually the decision makers in this work, that was a really, really important breakthrough for us. Yeah, we were guiding on the side and we were certainly liaising with our facilitator really strongly around our strategy and where it is we thought we wanted to go. But the driving happened from our middle leaders and teachers that were involved in we called it an action research group.
Empowering them to lead in a different way. And it's about empowering them to make the decisions and decide what needs to happen so that there's high levels of commitment and engagement in the work. So a really, really important point. I wouldn't expect it to be very different in the US either in terms of how you build culture.
No, it's you need that critical mass, and that's in your teacher leadership and in your building leadership. And I think for us, again, it's that culture, it's not that compliance. And so this is something that I believe in. This is work that matters. We have that shared understanding. And, when we talk about trusting the process, it also means really like trusting your students, trusting yourself, trusting your peers, trusting me as your leader. And we're all in this together. And so that's, I think, for me, exciting about as we begin this journey, and to say we're going to go on this journey together in partnership. And how you do this work will be authentic, and how students will build and be in community with you and with the content will be authentic.
The work it's not easy work. I think, when my team first started, it became very apparent to us that the types of questions we were being asked were questions that challenged some mindsets and assumptions around the way we do things here that we hold really close to our hearts. And I think the way the tools and the way the facilitator challenged us and being that external person was super, super helpful. But I think, you know, coming back to that moral imperative and that reason why we do what we do is just so important.
The importance of those tools in the process, because when you use a tool, you're actually framing up people's thinking. So when you use a rubric, for instance, you're asking people to justify where they sit on that rubric and why they sit there and provide evidence. And then you can have the conversation with people who have different interpretations of where the school is at. And you can illuminate all of these different understandings and beliefs about what's happening in the school. So
I guess what I like about the tools is that regardless of country, culture, or curriculum, they support educators to do the right work and get back to the heart of teaching. And for me, that's the holistic bit.
Professional learning teams, like hand on heart, there was not one professional learning team that just wasn't so deeply engaged in the work and so excited by the work because they're talking about kids. To go slow, to go fast when you're doing this work. There has to be a really, really, really clear understanding amongst your leadership team around why you're doing the work and what the work actually is before you start moving it further. You know, we've got a bit of a catchphrase here in our executive leadership team meetings. We don't leave the room with a question that is unasked or unanswered. We all have to leave on the same page. Take your time, make sure your understanding and your belief in the work is deep before you start rolling it out.
And I'd just like to thank Ben, Kelly and Stephen for an amazing conversation around holistic development today and the work of the Learner First. Thank you so much for your time.